Hey everyone, welcome to GardenFork Radio. You're here with Rick and Eric.
And where have you been, Eric?
That's a long story.
Where have you been, Rick?
Yeah.
That's a long story too. But we're back.
Yay.
Yay.
I'd be interested to see what people feel about what I call the archive shows. I had been distracted with family stuff, and I just wanted to keep putting up new content on the GardenFork Radio show, and I didn't know if people have already heard some of the older shows. And other podcasts that I listen to that would be nameless, but much larger ones, will repost shows and not give any hint that they are repurposed content until you're 7 minutes in and you're like, oh, I've heard this one already.
Yeah.
So I just put in the subject line archive, in the title archive show. And I thought that was being pretty above board. And I thought, well, maybe people want to hear some stuff that we talked about 2 years ago, because there's 270 episodes now or something.
Really?
So that was just my thought with that, just trying to, because iTunes downgrades us in search if we don't post on a regular basis.
Right.
So there's an ulterior motive there, of course. But there's also a lot of new listeners. And I just wanted to say, hey, there's this whole back history. And there isn't really a way to listen to it right now unless you go to the website and go through the individual posts for the radio shows.
Right.
So,
I know what I hear a lot of, and I think it's pretty clever, is a podcast called To the Best of Our Knowledge. And it's abbreviated TT Book. And they're out of Wisconsin, I think, public radio up there. But what they do is have short episodes that are standalone, 3 minutes with no evidence, or 3 to 5 minutes, and conversations and whatnot. And there's nothing that ages them, so they're timeless. What we call that? Evergreen.
Evergreen content.
Yeah. And then they're constantly thinking up a new theme and dropping these old recordings into the theme for that particular podcast. And you may hear one, and you go, oh, I recognize that. We heard that, 6 months ago. But it has a different purpose or a different theme. But it's a way of recirculating and re-editing everything. And it works out pretty well. That's one reason that NPR, they didn't intend to be perfect for podcasting, but that really is what happened to them. Most of their content is in the 3 to 5 minute range. And then they just, they have this enormous library of this stuff, and they put it together. And so they can put together a 15 or 20 minute podcast on the environment, or on city matters, or on health. Or
they have one on food. They have NPR Food.
Yeah, yeah.
My issue with the short podcasts is they have this really long intro, a canned intro. Right. And brought to you by, and then they have 2 minutes of content and you're done. And then to listen to the next one, you have to listen to 3 minutes of introductions again. and so I won't listen to them. So sorry.
Actually, NPR is probably my least listened to of all the podcasts I listen to.
Yeah.
I should compile a list. I mean, I have a list that I'll send to anybody who wants it. But I have a specific way I listen, and one of the things I really look for are very short podcasts. AAAS, the American Academy of Science, which publishes Scientific American and whatnot, has a whole series of 60-second science, 60-second health, 60-second universe, 60-second space, all that stuff. And they publish it about 3 times a week. And so you can get a fast update, particularly when you listen at 1.5 or 2 times speed. A fast little feature that doesn't have very much ad in it. They do a little piece for themselves. But there are a whole bunch of those on the internet for all kinds of things. And you can get up and stay up with a lot of topics and just get the pieces you need to know without having to listen to a whole hour-long interview or something.
Cool. By the way, everyone, today we're going to talk about Walden and Thoreau.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. But first, real quick, Rick, you have been in Florida on a little vacation?
I've been down occupying the Sinkhole Suite at my brother's house in Venice, and got back just in time to get an ice storm and then put 5 inches of snow on top of it. And so that's a major emergency here in Margaritaville North.
Yeah.
Because mostly all we use salt for is our margaritas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when the snow hits and a town does not have the tow truck, the plows and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we have a few, and they'll get the freeways opened up, but they pretty much are just going to have to let the rest of the town melt out. And it's already up above, it's 35 out there now, so it's beginning to melt already.
Nice.
Which is good, because I've got to go pick up She Who Must Be Obeyed at the Amtrak station over in Petersburg tomorrow.
Better clean up the house.
You know me too well. Yeah, I dropped her off on the way back at her sister's, and they all got together.
Had a little hangout, yeah.
They went to Biltmore over in Asheville, North Carolina, to see the dresses, the costumes from Downton Abbey.
Oh, and good for them.
And it's supposed to be a big deal, and I'm sure she took lots of pictures and stuff, or maybe she didn't. Maybe they don't allow it. I don't know. But anyway, they're having a great time.
All right, cool. So I have been having to travel to see my parents a lot lately. Both of them have kind of taken a big health hit. I don't really want to go into the details. Everyone knows my dad has Alzheimer's, and my mom got really quite ill. And it's so I'm just going to say, if your parents are getting older, we've talked about this before, but sit down with them and find out their financial situation. What kind of insurance, health insurance do they have? Do they have Medicaid Plus? I mean, there's these Medicaid extra coverages. And ideally, get a power of attorney with them and financial and I think it's called financial and legal, I believe it is.
Right.
And see if they have an advanced medical directive, that they have some wishes about treatment. That all varies state by state. But if you just type in living will in the name of your state, there's probably a nonprofit organization that offers a blanket form that you could fill out.
And, anytime you go to your doctor, they're going to have some. That's a big thing anymore. So everybody wants to know about your advanced directive. So,
when I had my foot operated on, I filled out a new advanced directive because it was in the clipboard of all the forms to fill out, and they notarized it right there.
Yeah.
So, and like I was like, Dad, let's talk. Let's see where you are here with your finances. Oh, we're fine. Well, they weren't, and so we're playing catch up now. And man, it is hard. So, my sister is amazing. She is really amazing. And my brother has helped out tremendously. And I have been flying back there. And man, does it disrupt your life. Because I thought, I'm going to hang out with my parents. I'll bring my laptop. I'll get all this work done. I got no work done.
Yeah. And relief for the caregiver when you're doing elder care issues or chronic care is just as important as taking care of the person that's sick. Because it's work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. So I just told my sister, I said, go home, go work. She has a job, I'm like, go to work, I'll take care of this, and I didn't text her all day. I'd be like, I'll talk to her at the end of the day.
Right.
And, that was huge. So yeah, we were really kind of caught. My mom was in the hospital and they released her, and I'm all about, I think nurses and doctors are amazing, but they released her and they didn't really kind of give us operating instructions. But I think that's because they released her on a Sunday and like the social worker wasn't on staff that day, maybe.
Right.
But then 2 days later, somebody from the hospital came, a visiting nurse, and said, your mom needs 24/7 care. And all of a sudden we had to scramble to find that care. And I was like, if they would have told us this while we were still in the hospital, it would have been a lot easier. And man, is it expensive. And, Medicare and Medicaid don't pay for a lot of this stuff. And you're all of a sudden, you're starting to spend lots of money. So the more prepared you are, the better.
Yeah. One of the things that we've done is, and it took me a long time to come around to it, but we've got a policy for taking care of us when we get old, real old.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what it's called, but
long-term care.
Long-term care policy. And it was actually my money guy that does my taxes and stuff. And he says, what this is, I said, it's useless. Men in my family, we usually drop dead about mid-70s, you know. Women on my wife's side of the family live on forever. But guys on my side of the family just drop dead. But I said, it's kind of useless. And he says, well, look, what you're really doing is protecting all of your assets. And he started telling me these stories about seeing entire families almost bankrupt by a long, lingering illness in nursing care and that kind of thing. So it's really good to have all this thought out and researched and talked about and really talk about it. What are your wishes? What do you want? What do you not want? We actually had my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's, and she had an advance directive. She did not want any additional care and that kind of thing. That was all done before she got sick. And it was actually a bit of a struggle within the family for those people who were not there on the scene when Mom got sick. And they went to the hospital, and the doctor said, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. And the person who was the signature on the
primary,
said, no, we're not going to do that. Her advance directive says specifically, I don't want this. And then the rest of the family started kind of piling on a little bit about, because they weren't there. They didn't see how much she had declined. If we can just get her over this little hump, well, then she'll be a lot better. And didn't see the whole picture. And it took a good deal of backbone to stand up and just say, no, this is Mom's wishes, and this is what we're going to do. And it really helps if you get all that worked out and talked out in the family beforehand.
By the way, we're going to talk about Walden and Thoreau at some point here, so sorry, everyone.
Oh.
That was a little cathartic for me, so thank you.
Yeah, a little dark, yeah. But it's just something that everybody needs to think about. We're Gail and I, or She Must Be Obeyed and I are both orphans now, and we kind of been through this a lot. And it was painful getting to this point, so kind of share that.
But this is where we are living deliberately.
Yes, we are living deliberately.
Hey everyone, just a quick shameless plug part of the GardenFork Radio Show. If you do any shopping on Amazon.com or HomeDepot.com, there are links in the show notes of this podcast. And if you click on that, that'll take you to Home Depot or Amazon, and it'll tell them that you came from GardenFork. And we get a little finder's fee for that. So anything you buy on Amazon or Home Depot in that next 24 hours, we get a little finder's fee for. And they're like, hey, thanks for sending your listeners to our site. HomeDepot.com is cool because you can order things and then have them picked up at the store, save some shipping. Also, if you're not home during the day, it's essentially being shipped to their store and you go get it when you want. And Amazon, well, Amazon is what it is. It's everything. All right, here we go.
One of my favorite podcasts is by Clay Jenkinson. He is part of the Chautauqua movement. And he's a professor.
What is the Chautauqua movement?
The Chautauqua movement were a bunch of people who would recreate actors or people from the past and take them around to cities. And it was started up in your part of the country. And they're actually everywhere now. And they will go into schools and they do podcasts and that kind of thing as this character. And they do very careful research about the characters they portray. And when they are there, they try to be in that character. They don't have opinions that are not of that character, that kind of thing. And his specialty is Thomas Jefferson.
Almost like a method actor.
Yeah, sort of. And he goes and he speaks in schools and universities. And he has the podcast, thomasjeffersonhour.org. And he does the first half of the show in character as Thomas Jefferson talking about one topic or another. And then he does the second half of it as himself with a co-host discussing the matters in a more modern context. And it's a fascinating show. It really gives you a lot of insight into the founding fathers, how they thought, what Jefferson actually said, what we think Jefferson actually thought, that kind of thing. We know now Jefferson was, for the most part, a vegetarian. He used meat as a flavoring for his vegetables. He almost ate almost no meat. So, just kind of interesting stuff like that. But every winter, Clay does this humanities retreat. And this year, the theme was Walden. And Henry David Thoreau, the great book Walden. And it's a bit of a hike. I read it as an undergraduate. Mm-hmm. And I pushed on through and really didn't absorb it, and I didn't get much out of it.
Yeah, I couldn't finish it.
Yeah,
I thought I was reading looking for the deep meaning, and I didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, it's there, and Clay did, instead of doing Jefferson this last time, it's show 1116, to live deliberately,
which we'll link to in the show notes here.
Okay, he talked about Walden. And I, for the first time in my life, kind of understood it. And I'm going to go back and reread it and think it a little bit, because really, and a great part of what we do at GardenFork has a very Waldenish feel to it, a very Thoreauvian feel. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Do for yourself, grow for yourself. Be content with less so that you have more, that kind of thing. And so I thought it was a fascinating article, or a fascinating podcast. And then he also wrote an article for the Bismarck Tribune. He teaches at in North Dakota, Bismarck State. And he did an article in Walden that we'll link to as well. So I thought I'd just link that out. And then he had another article in the Tribune that I found really fascinating. He just turned 60, and the title of the piece is "So Time Begins to Be a Factor." And I'm 62 now, and you kind of hit that point where you go, well, I need to look down the road here and think about this a little bit.
Yeah.
And the 60 is about your last chance to make any kind of mid-course correction, in your life that you want to make, and for most people. So just thought I'd pass that on. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. I actually listened to the beginning of the podcast, and they kept on talking about to live deliberately, and I'm like, well, what the heck does that mean? And they actually did talk about it more, and I made some notes here. And basically a lot of life, you're kind of just swept along. And they were talking about how, you can go through a whole week and it's a blur, and you're like, well, what did I do that week? What did I do last week? And, we went through the whole week without opening our eyes, was one statement they made that kind of clicked in my head. And living deliberately is the choices you make are deliberate, rather than, I got to get in the car, I got to go to the Dunkin' Donuts, get my coffee. It's more like kind of hitting the brakes and going, wait a minute, let me just think for a minute here about what we are going to do.
And is this what I want to do? Is this how I really want to spend my time? It really flows very nicely into the mindfulness meditation thing that's kind of sweeping the country now. Which
there are 2 cool new apps for.
Really?
I did not send you a link to this, but I'm going to open Evernote and look at it. But the New York Times has a tech column, and they review apps, and they reviewed 2 apps to help you do mindful meditation.
Wonderful.
And both apps are free, but if you want to upgrade to, both apps will have additional features, which I think are all at $10,
Right.
And you're going to spend more than $10 on, 2 donuts and 2 coffees. So.
Yeah. Well, I want to see that. Have you tried them yet?
No, I just found out about it last night, and of course, I can't find it here in my great. I could have swore I saved them. Anyway, but if you're thinking about meditating, which I'm thinking about, and by the way, you will sleep better if you meditate. That's another article they wrote about. So
right,
but that whole kind of deliberately thing. Because I read Thoreau and Walden, I thought, oh, this is going to be this. It's almost like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I thought, oh, I'll read this and I'll find the secrets to life, And I collected all these books when I was younger, and I'm like, none of this is clicking. And so I think part of it is you have to live some life first.
Maybe. What helped me, I meditate, and it really does help. I've lowered my blood pressure, and It doesn't have to be full of woo. They're actually putting long-term meditators in functional MRI scanners and seeing major changes in their brains from the rest of us normal people. And there's a book that really helps people get started, I think, and it's by Dan Harris. It's called 10% Happier. And there's no woo in it at all. It's about he's on CNN, CBS, something. He's not the one that was in trouble recently, but he's just waiting his turn, I guess.
We're all in trouble.
Yeah, but it's a fascinating book. My wife, who had not been able to really get into understanding how to go about it, this is a very practical guide on how to get it going, why it's good, and why it doesn't have to have a religious connotation or any kind of spiritual connotation. This is just something that is good for you physically, to slow down, think about it, and to get control of your inner life a little bit. So,
wow.
I'll send you a link on my little book review I did.
This is the deep show.
This is deep stuff, man. And then finally, I wanted to talk about. I seem to do all the talking today.
Well, you basically wrote. You sent me this talking notes, and I'm like, fine, I don't have to do anything.
Another podcast. We have talked before about either being a maximizer or a satisficer. And if you're a maximizer, you do all the research and you got to find the very best thing and the very best deal and that kind of thing. And if you're a satisficer, you say, well, good enough, and that's what I'll take. And if you're mismatched in your marriage, particularly between satisficer and a maximizer, it can cause tensions. But one of the things that I love the most is Consumers Report, because they satisfy both of us. You can find where they have reviewed a TV sets or whatever it is you're interested in. You can flip it open, read it, get an idea of what's good, what's bad, what to look for, what not to look for, maybe some recommendations, and you've kind of done all the legwork. So they do all the legwork for you. They've started doing podcasts now. And
everyone's copying us.
Yeah, I know. A podcast. What do you say? Podcast are the new cupcakes.
Yeah.
And but it's they do a video and an audio. The audio is only on iTunes, but it's Consumer Reports 2015 top picks of their cars, and it's behind the scenes, how they pick their cars, what they really think about them. And these guys are brutally honest, but they loved Subaru.
Yeah, I drive a Subaru.
Yeah, I know. That's the reason I thought of you when I heard that. They just for a solid all-around car that's just, mechanically it holds together. It, starts first time every time. It stays on the road. It just everything is well thought out, well designed. They're never the first in the marketplace with anything, but they do it as well as anybody once they get into that whatever that feature is.
They're very easy to parallel park when you have snow drifts and stuff in New York City, because everyone else is spinning their wheels, and I just drive right up on the snowbank and I park the thing. And they're like, "What's with that guy?" I will link in the show notes to the apps, the meditation apps. I cannot find them right now. I have to go back to the New York Times site and look for those. Sorry.
Okay, well, I'll send you this link.
We have some viewer mail here. I don't know.
Somebody actually listens to us?
A couple people do.
Oh, okay.
And I have to click on some buttons here. I'm sorry. I don't know if we read Mark's one here, but he sent it to radio@gardenfork.tv, so it was easy to find. And he said, Rick and Eric, thanks for all you do. Eric, looking forward to the canoe build. Rick, new podcast I found. It's not GardenForky, but good. Hardcore History. So Mark listens to the Hardcore History one as well.
Dan Carlin.
Yeah.
Common Sense and Hardcore History. And they are wonderful. They're great. I'm a big Dan Carlin fan. So thank you, Mark.
And Alice said, I'm a subscriber to your wonderful channels, and I thought maybe you could use a dose of warmer weather.
Please.
So here's something from the summer. It's an interesting video I found from the University of Maine. Even though I've tried this method before, the guy who's demonstrating this weaving technique is so efficient that I might have to give it a go this spring, summer for my tomatoes. It's about how to weave your tomatoes when they're in a row. It's kind of scaled more toward a larger agricultural operation.
Right.
But if you have your tomatoes in a row, you take like a 5-foot stake about every 4 plants. And then you have a ball of string that's on the end of like a 3-foot stick. And you weave, you go from stake to stake and you weave the string between the plants. And so you're essentially, and then you come back around and you weave on the opposite side of each of those plants. So you're kind of making a rug. You're weaving a rug in which the tomato plants are the, I'd say, horizontal parts of the rug.
Okay.
So you're basically, by weaving the string in and around them, you're holding them up between stakes that are about every 4 or 5 plants.
So does that make them the waft or the warp? I wonder.
I don't know.
But
I
understand though. You're sandwiching the it's if you have a lot of them. I've seen this in greenhouses. Big production greenhouses, and those guys can do that fast. And just zipping in and out, and in and out, and in and out.
Wow. It's it's just kind of like so simple, and yet, oh wow, So
I've tried all kinds of things. I may have to try this because I've tried stringing them up kind of horizontally or vertically rather, and that didn't work out too well last time. And they still got leggy and fell over, and they were difficult to keep in. And the nice thing about this, it looks like I hadn't thought about it, but you can just, when they start getting too leggy or something, you just go back through with your weaver and do some more weaving.
Yeah. So it's a YouTube video from the University of Maine. I believe if you just search for Weaving Tomatoes University of Maine on YouTube, it'll come up, but we will link in the show notes here of that one. So that was neat. So Alice and Mark, that was nice of them.
Yes, very nice.
Hardcore history is a big favorite of people. Interesting. Again, you guys can email us. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. I've got some other emails that I have to catch up on. And the guy found me.
I emailed you and you never said anything.
Right. Well, he emailed me back and said, I think I'm the guy you're looking for, Eric. And it is. So, and his name is Scott. So he has a couple of questions here, which I will tackle in a little bit on our next show. And I'll also email him back. So it was great to hear from Scott. And we have some new videos coming out. A bread baking video this week it's called batter bread. It's kind of like a no-knead bread. It's been around for maybe 100 years, but it's a really wet dough that you can make a nice sandwich loaf from. And on DIY Garden Fork, it's about how to replace the drive mechanism in an external hard drive enclosure.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I did. One of my drives was failing. So instead of throwing out the whole thing, the enclosure and all, you can remove the drive itself from I call it the enclosure, the metal box, slide in a new one, and you're good to go. And I made a video about how to do that.
Terrific.
All right, everyone. So always great to hear from you. We are on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Facebook still frustrates me. I post something there and we have 5,000 followers and 400 of them get to see it. So it's
very unusual. I don't understand how that. I guess we haven't paid them, have we?
No. If you're on the Garden Fork Facebook page, there's a notifications pull down, and it says something like "Keep me updated on this," and that's how you keep it in your feed. Because otherwise, they just select who they're going to show it to. But there you go. Never build your castle in someone else's backyard. That's my deep thought of the day.
Well, never build your aquaponics system in somebody else's rented space.
Yeah.
I learned my lesson there.
There you go. All right, everyone. So thanks for listening. Let me know if you're okay with the archive shows. If one pops up, that means I'm just pretty busy with something and I haven't gone anywhere. All right. So make it a great day, and we'll see you later.
Okay. Talk to you later, my friend. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate that. Again, if you are shopping on Amazon.com or HomeDepot.com, there are links in the show notes here. There are also links on any page of the GardenFork.tv website as well. Appreciate that. Helps us pay the bills, helps us put out all the stuff we do. All right, see ya. GardenFork's theme music is used under license from UniqueTracks.com.